There are seasons when the hardest part of faith is not pain. It's waiting without knowing why. You're not being attacked by fear. You're not overwhelmed by chaos. You're simply standing in the middle of unanswered space. You pray, not with desperation, but with endurance. You ask not loudly but faithfully, and yet nothing seems to move. No explanation, no clear direction, no sense of timing. Just waiting. Waiting has a particular weight to it. It stretches time. It makes days feel longer than they should. It forces you to live without the comfort of understanding. And perhaps the most exhausting part is this: you are still doing everything right. You are still trusting, still believing, still holding on without guarantees. There is no dramatic crisis here, no breaking point, just a quiet tension that lives in your chest as you move through ordinary days, carrying an unanswered question. How long? What am I missing? Is something happening that I can't see? These questions don't mean you lack faith. They mean you are human, living in the space between promise and fulfillment. Waiting without answers doesn't feel heroic. It feels invisible. No one applauds endurance. No one notices patience when nothing changes. And yet, this is where many people quietly begin to feel tired in their faith. Not because they stopped believing, but because belief without explanation requires a different kind of strength. You may even feel pressure to resolve the waiting yourself, to interpret silence, to assign meaning, to stay positive so doubt doesn't creep in. But waiting is not something you solve, it is something you live through. If you are in a season where God has not explained himself, where doors haven't opened or closed clearly, and you are simply standing, trusting without clarity, remain here for a moment. This space was made for those who are still faithful, still waiting, and still without answers. Waiting without answers carries a very specific kind of pain, one that is often hard to explain, even to yourself. It's not the pain of loss, it's not the pain of fear, it's the pain of suspension. You are held in between what was promised and what has not yet appeared, between prayer and response, between trust and understanding. This kind of waiting can slowly drain the soul because it offers no clear reference point. There is no timeline to count down, no sign to interpret, no confirmation that says, yes, this is still moving. You may feel emotionally alert but spiritually tired. You wake up each day with the same unanswered situation in the background of your mind. It doesn't dominate every thought, but it never fully leaves. It follows you quietly through routines, conversations, and prayers. Sometimes the waiting brings self-doubt. You wonder if you misunderstood God, if you waited incorrectly, if patience has turned into passivity. Other times, it brings comparison. You notice how quickly things seem to move for others, how answers arrive for them while your own story remains paused. And then there is the tension of silence. You are not hearing no, you are not hearing yes, you are hearing nothing. Silence has a way of magnifying internal pressure. It invites you to fill the gaps with interpretation, fear, or imagined conclusions. Yet you resist that because you still want to trust. So you hold back your questions, you manage your expectations, you carry hope carefully so it doesn't disappoint you again. This restraint is exhausting. Waiting without answers also affects prayer itself. Your words grow simpler, sometimes repetitive, sometimes hesitant. You pray not because you feel confident, but because prayer is the only place where waiting feels shared. And still, nothing seems to resolve. This block offers no solution, no timeline, no explanation, no reassurance yet, only acknowledgement. If waiting has made your faith feel heavy, not broken but burdened, then this pain has a name. It is the weight of faithful endurance without clarity. And you are not alone in carrying it. When answers do not come, silence becomes louder than words, not because God feels distant in belief, but because his voice no longer explains what is happening. You still trust him. You still pray. Yet the absence of clarity begins to press against your thoughts. God's silence in waiting seasons is often misunderstood. We tend to assume that silence means pause, hesitation, or distance. But in Scripture, silence is rarely empty. It is purposeful. It is active. It is forming something beneath the surface. God's silence is not abandonment. It is not neglect. It is not punishment. Silence is often the space where trust is reshaped. When God does not explain himself, he is not withholding care. He is removing dependency on explanation. Waiting without answers forces faith to exist without confirmation. It teaches the soul to stand without leaning on timelines, signs, or reassurance. This is uncomfortable because clarity gives us control. It lets us manage expectations. Silence removes that illusion. In waiting seasons, God often stays closer than we realize. But he speaks less because his presence is meant to be carried, not analyzed. Silence does not mean nothing is happening. It means something deeper is happening quietly. Formation does not announce itself. Growth beneath the soil makes no sound. Roots expand in darkness, unseen, before anything changes above ground. If God were to explain too early, the soul would cling to answers rather than to him. So he remains present without commentary. This kind of silence can feel heavy because it stretches patience beyond emotion. It demands endurance without reward. It asks you to keep walking without knowing the destination. Yet this is where trust matures, not the trust that feels strong, but the trust that remains. If God feels quiet while you wait, it does not mean he has stepped back. It means he is teaching your faith to rest without knowing. And that kind of faith, though unseen, is not fragile. It is being strengthened quietly, one unanswered day at a time. This is where Psalm 23 enters, not to explain the waiting and not to answer the questions you've been carrying. It enters as guidance. Psalm 23 does not begin by telling you where the path leads. It begins by reminding you who is walking with you. The Lord is my shepherd. A shepherd does not show the entire route to the sheep. He does not explain every turn or justify every pause. He leads step by step, staying close enough to guide without overwhelming. That matters when you are waiting without answers. Psalm 23 does not promise speed. It does not promise explanation. It promises presence. He leads me beside still waters. Still waters are not destinations. They are pauses along the way, moments where the soul can breathe without knowing what comes next. In waiting seasons, this matters more than clarity. You may not know why the delay exists. You may not know how long it will last. But Psalm 23 reframes the waiting as movement under care, not stagnation. Even the valley appears, not as failure, but as part of the route. Even though I walk through the valley is not a mistake. It is not a detour caused by weak faith. It is terrain the shepherd already knows. Waiting without answers often feels like standing still. But Psalm 23 shows that waiting can be walking, slowly, quietly, without explanation, but not without direction. The turning point is subtle. Nothing resolves instantly. The questions may remain, the timeline may stay hidden, but the burden shifts. You are no longer responsible for understanding everything. You are invited to follow. Psalm 23 gives permission to trust the shepherd's pace rather than demand a map, to rest without clarity, to move without explanation, to wait without interpreting silence as neglect. This psalm does not remove uncertainty, it removes loneliness within it, and sometimes that is the answer the soul needs first. This is a moment to stop searching for meaning. Not because meaning doesn't matter, but because your soul has been carrying questions for long enough. Waiting without answers creates a constant inner tension. Even when you are still, part of you remains alert, listening for clarity that hasn't arrived yet. This is where rest becomes intentional, not accidental. So let yourself slow down. You don't need to review the situation again. You don't need to replay prayers in your mind. You don't need to reach for insight right now. Psalm 23 speaks of still waters because stillness is protective. It gives the soul space to exist without pressure. Take a quiet breath, not to calm yourself artificially, not to feel something specific, just to notice that you are being held in this moment. Waiting does not mean God has left you unattended. It means He is allowing you to rest without forcing resolution. He restores my soul. Restoration is not the moment answers appear. It is the moment striving stops. You may still be waiting when this moment ends. That's okay. You are not being asked to understand, only to remain. Let your thoughts come and go without chasing them. Let the questions stay unanswered for now. They do not define your faith. Faith does not require constant certainty. It requires presence. This pause is not wasted time. It is care in its simplest form. You are allowed to rest without knowing what comes next. You are allowed to breathe without explanation. And even if nothing changes outwardly, something quiet is being protected within you. Stay here a little longer. There is no urgency. There is no demand, only guidance that does not rush and care that does not explain itself. You don't need to leave this moment with answers. Waiting does not become easier because it is explained. It becomes bearable because it is shared. Psalm 23 does not end by resolving the waiting. It ends by staying with you inside it. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me. Not rush you, not pressure you, follow. This means that even when your questions remain unanswered, care is still moving behind you, quietly filling the spaces you don't have strength to manage. Waiting does not mean your faith is incomplete. It means your faith is learning to walk without leaning on certainty. You are not behind schedule. You are not missing God's timing. You are being led at a pace that protects your soul, not your expectations. Psalm 23 does not ask you to understand the valley. It asks you to trust the shepherd who walks through it with you. If your prayers feel unfinished, let them be unfinished. If your questions remain open, let them remain open. Faith does not collapse because it waits, it deepens. This psalm will remain with you, not as a solution, but as a presence you can return to. One quiet day at a time, one step at a time. If this moment met you gently, stay close. These reflections are not meant to close chapters quickly. They are meant to walk with you while the story continues. Another quiet moment will be here again, not with answers, but with companionship. And sometimes that is enough to keep going.